a show where every night Jeff Newsroom gets a Republican and he says, well, you would agree with this, wouldn't you? And they go, oh, yeah. And you'd agree with this, wouldn't you? Well, sure. And he goes, but then shouldn't you by definition believe in this? And then they're just flummoxed. When in reality, people just filibuster that shit. And nobody's going to be led down your primrose path. Nobody's going to argue on your terms. Why would anyone opposed to you argue on anything on your terms? And they think that there's some objective outside force, some objective, sensible middle American out there who's weighing these things and sees that you are being reasonable. But I don't
think like Medicare and Medicaid are like socialist, but they are social welfare programs that have historically like borrowed
they
from
redistribute.
They redistribute wealth, and they have borrowed from like broadly speaking like socialist ideals.
Yeah,
which is
and it's a redistributive program by definition. But like that difference between Republicans and Democrats boils down to the fact that the Republicans, when they're in office, for the most part, they have an actual incentive to pass the stuff that they run on. The people that they take money from want those policies enacted. And
a good example of that, Georgia's fetal heartbeat bill that just passed that would, if it ever took effect, make any woman who has an abortion or even has a miscarriage potentially eligible for the death penalty.
Yeah.
So Kevin D. Williams just busted in his pants thinking about that.
Yeah.
But do you think the people who came up with this ludicrous, barbaric law that, again, should be noted is a stricter and more draconian abortion restriction that has ever existed in American history, if not even world history, like by comparison. Like even when abortion was illegal in parts of this country, like there was never anything close to what the effect of what these laws would be.
Yeah.
And do you think the people who came up with this bill were like thinking to themselves, God, if it comes out that we are going to potentially be jailing and executing women for exercising, bodily autonomy, do you think that might make the other side more afraid and thus more likely to organize against us?
Yeah.
Of course they know that's true. They're counting on it.
Yeah.
They want it to fucking happen.
But that's the thing. When they get in power, they have an agenda. Democrats, and this is why whenever people talk about Democrats being ineffectual or cowardly, it's a fundamental misanalysis. They do not want to do the shit that they talk about. They do not want to have these to do any kind of significant redistribution or significant regulation of finance or any other industry, because those are the people who keep the lights on. They have to tell their constituents that that's what they want, because that's broadly the ideological makeup of the Democratic coalition, but they have no incentive of actually carrying it out. Their jobs depend on managing those desires, managing those ideological currents, and preventing them from being genuine threats through the democratic process to those interests. And as a result, they can never really commit to any policy. And it means that, like we've seen for the whole 20th century since the Bush years, that the Democratic policy is always, from before Pelosi and after her will be, well, wait for them to fuck it up. Wait for Republicans to go too far, because that is the flip side of doing what you actually campaign on, is you eventually alienate people. And if that happens in the same time that you're in power and maybe there's an economic downturn, boom, you're going to lose power. And then you can swipe in there and get it.
Another thing I want to bring up, like, just as long as we're talking about this, horrific bill that they're considering in Georgia. I mean, the law has not taken effect yet, so I don't want to like freak people out. Like,
no, it's all going. Well, the thing is, all these states are just in a contest to be the one to be on. When it gets overturned by Brett Kavanaugh, which state is going to be in that ruling? When it goes down in history as a historic ruling, they want to know. Like, they want to be the state whose name is the byword for abortion restriction.
And I think, the important thing about this is, if you'll remember in the 2016 campaign, I think when he was talking to Chris Matthews did like the Jeff Newsroom thing, the sort of gotcha thing on abortion, which actually is a necessary and vital question that should be asked of anyone who is in favor of restricting legal access to abortion, is what should be the criminal penalty be for a woman who tries to obtain one.
Right.
And because Trump's an idiot and not versed in right-wing propaganda and like doublespeak, followed that conclusion through logically and told Chris Matthews, I don't know, but I think there should be, quote, some punishment.
Yeah.
And then when that happened, like literally within 5 minutes, his comm shop walked it back and said, no, this is totally not what we believe. And all of like the serious, sensible, moderate, intellectual conservatives penned, They went into overtime penning pieces, assuring everyone that this is not actually what pro-lifers want or believe, and that Trump actually really stepped in it and really offended a lot of pro-lifers. I just want to have one example here from National Review. This is punishing women for abortion. Trump contradicts centuries of legal experience. This is by who cares, some shithead. But just at the end here, it says, Trump's comment has undermined the long, hard work of pro-life leaders over the past 4 decades. Leaders who, in the face of false charges by abortion rights advocates, have sought to make clear that they oppose the prosecution of women who abort and that the opposition is far from arbitrary but rests on the uniform state policy before Roe. And what's most galling is that a person like Trump, who has supported abortion and abortion organizations and pro-abortion candidates for decades, has such crude, flippant, ill-informed opinions, should suddenly claim to speak for pro-life Americans. Bill Clinton, who reportedly urged Trump to run, must be laughing minute by minute. Yeah, I fucking bet he is now. But here's the thing, like Trump's comment undermined the long, hard work of pro-life leaders. That is 100% true statement. But what they're really saying is that undermined all the hard work that we've done convincing normal, regular people that we're not like blood-drinking ghouls who want to throw women in jail.
That we're not just frothing misogynists.
Yeah, keep that in mind. So the last thing here from Pelosi. A party can win more votes in Pelosi's view by claiming to represent the middle than by claiming to represent a wing or a movement. The Republicans have abandoned the center. The left can own it, she argued on Tuesday. There is no center of American politics.
There's not a center. There's a bunch of people with just, as Felix has ably pointed out, a bunch of people with just insanely incoherent views. That's the center.
I would love for Nancy Pelosi, Will Selton, I would love for them to go on 2 fact-finding missions. The first would be to the villages to explain to the people there that like Medicaid isn't socialism. And hopefully after, meeting a guy who's put a ghillie suit on his golf cart, they can realize what a fool's errand this is. The other is, to go to the hot couches and Raisin Canes of Ohio and talk to normal voters they believe to be in the center and get opinions like, I could see the argument for why Bush blew up the Twin Towers, but Building 7 was just egregious. Opinions like, my political heroes, easy. Got Trent Lott and Paul Wellstone, 2 guys that always fought for the truth. And the same people, the wheat lobby killed both of them. Trent Lott metaphorically, Paul Wellstone in reality. And just, see the insane incoherence of the sort of like uninitiated American mind. And I don't know, maybe walk away with it learning a little bit.
We need to stop we need to stop these drone strikes all over these other countries and bring the drone strikes to America.
Yeah.
Oh,
we need a border wall right now. There's all these foreign products like Chef Boyardee. The Italians are coming in. I can't take it. And it's a Mexican guy saying it. That's the average American.
There was actually a political reporter who said, this was on Twitter this week, said, just spoke to a voter from Winchester, New Hampshire, who voted for Romney in 2012, Obama in 2008, George W. Bush in 2004 and 2000, Clinton in 96, and George H.W. Bush in 92. So this is like the guy who literally trades off presidential elections between party. One of 15 people in America who are like this. He said he voted for Trump in 2016, but said he could be convinced otherwise after the Dem primary is over. But he has a few deal breakers. His deal breakers for Trump: any further child separation, tariffs, and if he bungles trade deals. Okay? Here are his deal breakers for the Democratic nominee: an unwillingness to establish some sort of immigration restriction.
Yeah, we don't have any immigration restrictions.
Raising taxes on corporations, but he is okay with raising taxes on individual income.
Look, if you want to raise my taxes, that's fine. But if you come for Monsanto, I will fuck you up, sir. Just, gibberish.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the average American, like, their politics are mostly informed by, like, David D's cartoons and Parks and Rec. Like, just somewhere, and the Taken movies.
Yes.
Like, just somewhere in between those 3 poles.
Like, they'd be the kind of person who'd be like, West Wing's my favorite show, but I hated it when they injected all that politics into it.
Like, basically, they just want to, they don't think of it systematically. They don't have any ideology, really. They just react to discrete, every discrete event happens. They never connect any of the dots between any of them. They don't, like, apply a ideological or even just basic causal rubric to anything. They're just wow, that's fucked up. And then they just create discrete explanations that they then all hold together without ever realizing the degree to which they all contradict one another.
Yeah, I mean because the average American's life is boring chaos.
Yeah.
You're constantly just on a razor's edge over, whether you're just going to be fucking homeless over a bad break. You got a blood clot where you shouldn't have, and you can't afford your house anymore. Oh, your kid might get blown up with bullets in a school. Whoops, your job doesn't exist anymore. But nothing really happens because all you do in America is just drive from one Panera to another, and so your concept of linear events and causality is completely fraught and fucked up because you're not actually really taught anything about any of this, and so you just go through life thinking that like Colin Kaepernick is kneeling so Aaron Hernandez will be freed, but you want to hear both sides.
But
of the
you're in
issue.
favor of it.
Yeah.
You're in favor of Aaron Hernandez being freed, but not him kneeling to protest his imprisonment.
And Nancy Pelosi sees you, and she's like, oh, this guy doesn't really want healthcare.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm for healthcare, and you're like, what does that mean? And then your uncle, who invented a type of whirlpool that ended up like sucking people's intestines out and killing them, but it was before like advances in liability law. So the company went out of business, but he left with like a $10 million settlement. He's like, yeah, did you know she's an ISIS? And you're like, oh, that's fucked. I don't want that healthcare.
No, well, that's the thing. Even if you paid attention, even if it's not even a question of they don't even pay attention to anything. No, these are voters. Voters do try to like stay abreast of what's going on. Even if you do, you're not getting an explanation for why anything happens anyway from the media or from anyone in politics. They have no interest in connecting any dots for you. It's just a bunch of discrete horseshit and then a bunch of pablum about like we're great because we're good or we're gonna get better and we're gonna keep on keeping on.
Right, even if you're to take seriously the idea that there is some center in American politics that represents some vast mass of voters that basically stand for everything that is exactly halfway in between the Democrat, the most left-wing Democrat and most right-wing Republican, which, by the way, would basically be the Democratic Party agenda as it currently stands.
Correct.
Like, even if you accept that that's true, none of these people can be reached through politics.
No.
Or policies or ideologies. And I'm sorry, like Nancy Pelosi, like for Saladin to say she cares about policies, not ideologies. You don't get to make that distinction.
You don't get to make that choice.
Policies are ideological.
Yes.
Like you can't separate one from the other. And to say that like, oh, I just care about the policy of Obamacare, that's an ideological investment in a political program.
Yes.
That is explicitly anti-left wing.
And just because you're saying it that way doesn't mean anyone is going to take it that way. You have no power over how it's perceived, and that's what these people. And they always get this media press this media coverage from people like Saladin, who believe themselves to be people who can shape the way people believe things. Like guys like Will Sullivan are 100% convinced that they're wizards of propaganda, and they're like Walter Lippmann, and that
Walter Lippmann, exactly.
Yeah, they can shape the discourse, and so of course when a politician tells them, oh well, see, I'm going to use fairness instead, policy, they're like, aha, brilliant, you're going to really get those cottage cheese brained rubes on your side with that one.
Walter Lippmann, he coined American century, or did he also coin? Did he coin the term manufacturing consent that Herman and Chomsky?
He was manufacturing consent.
Yeah.
Henry Luce did.
Henry Luce was American century.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You say that about Will Salatin, but I think actually he is sort of an influencer. And just to prove that, I've selected 4 Will Salatin articles from Slate, just totally at random, totally random selection. Ass Backwards, the media's silence about rampant anal sex. From September 20th, 2005.
That is a very roundabout way to get your wife to try it.
From October 5th, 2010, 5 years later, The Ass Man Cometh, Experimentation, Orgasms, and the Rise of Anal Sex. Again, totally randomly selected article here from October 11th, 2010. The Riddle of the Sphincter, Why do women who have anal sex get more orgasms? And again, totally random from November 25th, 2013. More is lesbian. Nearly 20% of young British women say they'd have same-sex experience. What's going on?